Hey everyone, welcome to Can't Afford to Record, the YouTube channel where we figure out the art of audio production together. Today I'm sitting down and I'm catching up with mixer, audio engineer, producer and owner of Damage Audio Studios, Faz. I've known Faz for quite a few years now because we are actually from the same hometown of Bedford in the UK, although I don't live there anymore. I have a lot of time for Faz. He's an amazing musician, amazing recording engineer, mixer, producer like I say, and I've had the great pleasure of recording in his recording studio, Damage Audio, quite a few times. He talks us through some of the equipment he has and the pros and cons to sort of running a fully analog studio. It seems like there's always something to be tweaking and fixing somewhere. Faz and his friend Danny also have a great podcast. I'm a big fan of it. It's called the Muso Coffeecast. If you are a musician and just like to nerd out about music theory and audio production and you like coffee, which is pretty much every musician I know, then it's a great podcast. You should really check it out. Links in description. Also, don't forget, if you're not into the conference call quality of the audio in this podcast, that's okay. You can go and check out the audio only version of this conversation on the Can't Afford to Record podcast, which is on Spotify or wherever else you listen to your podcasts. But that's enough from me. I really think you're going to love this episode. Let's go and catch up with Faz at his studio, Damage Audio. We are here with Faz at Damage Audio Studios. How are you doing?
I'm good, man. How you doing?
Yeah, not too bad, not too bad. We've known each other for a while, obviously. I'm a Bedford boy. You're a Bedford boy. We've actually done a couple of sessions together, which perhaps we'll get into. But we are going to jump straight into it, Faz. And we're going to go through a little bit of a lot of your career, and we're going to talk about the things you've learned and whatnot, and what you're up to now, and maybe different experiences and stories you can tell us about your mixing and recording processes. But before we get into any of that, the first question I ask everyone is: do you remember a time when you couldn't afford to record?
No, I'm loaded.
Yeah.
That's a funny one. To be honest, like as a musician, I didn't have that many studio experiences. Like not as an engineer. Like maybe a couple of times when I was younger, but I've always done it in some capacity. You know, I think I fit into the millennial bracket just about.
Right.
So we do, right? I think we're the same age. I think we.
Yeah. How old are you again?
Old enough.
Okay. All right. You don't want to put a date on this. I get it. All right. Well, I'm 31.
Okay, I'm older, but
okay.
That's cool. only a bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, so I've always had access to record some way. I was always into computers when I was younger. I've kind of always been there in some capacity, not like I am today, of course, but I've always been able to record guitars and stuff like that. So technically, not really.
Okay, well, that's interesting because a lot of people that I've spoken to, they start off on cassette recorders. They start off on the 4-track Tascams or something like that. Did you ever go through that process, or were you just like straight to Pro Tools? Here I go.
Yeah, I'm not that old. Cubase was my first thing.
Cubase,
okay. PC. I think my equivalent of the cassette recorder would have been when I was a kid. I used to mess around. I had PCs from quite a young age. My dad was into building them, so I used to get into. There was like a really basic WAV file recorder. It could only record one thing, but you could reverse it and pitch it a little bit.
Okay.
So I used to get into trying to make sounds like that to no end, just messing around.
Right.
So that was probably my 4-track, was changing the sounds and the alert tones on the computer and just trying to work out how to record things into that. So I came in from a geeky angle.
What got you into recording in the first place? So why Cubase? What was the interest to even start messing around with music and recording it onto a computer?
I think it's just a natural progression. I couldn't tell you why exactly. I mean, it would have been a songwriting thing. It would have been it just seemed like a natural progression to do as a musician. I was in a band. The guitarist was recording us, but only like demos with programmed drums. He was doing it, and then I guess that inspired me to do it. I couldn't really say, to be honest. It just kind of, from that point, just happened. I was around it.
Okay.
It's natural.
Cubase is a very UK school type
Oh yeah.
application software. I used Cubase when I was at school as well. I think everyone in the world, well, no, I just said the UK, but I feel like everyone in the UK that ever did GCSE music has had a bit of a messed around with Cubase a little bit. How long did working with Cubase last for until you maybe went to Logic or maybe you went straight to Pro Tools?
It didn't last long.
Right, right.
Maybe a year. I think it would have. The reason I would have ended up using it would have been I was using it at college or friends used it,
Yeah,
and then I got into Logic a couple of years ago. So I was using Logic on PCs
right,
because it was a long time ago.
right.
You can't get it on PC anymore.
Yeah.
So yeah, I moved over to that, and then in terms of that kind of stuff, like in the last 10 years, I moved to Pro Tools. I'm mostly in Pro Tools these days.
Okay. Now, are you in Pro Tools because it's industry standard? You can jump into any studio, you can jump into any session, you can accept session files a lot more conveniently, or is it genuinely the DAW that you enjoy using? Like why was Pro Tools such a choice?
Kind of a lot of all those things, really. The
Okay.
big one for me was I made the switch whilst this was my line of work, this is my career. And
Right.
at that point, I was having so many issues with Logic. Logic used to be really unstable at one point. I
Right.
don't know if it was just that version or maybe something I was doing. I don't know,
Was
but
that
it
like
was.
Logic 8 or something like that?
Yes,
Was
it
it
was.
earlier?
It was Logic 8. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's when I switched. I was having a lot of problems with it. So I wouldn't have minded if I was just writing at home or if it was just me working alone. But I'd have clients in sessions and it would crash like 3 times in an hour, and I'm billing on that time. You can't do that. So
Right.
I bit the bullet and I jumped into Pro Tools and just forced myself to learn it. And I learned it by doing a entire record in it and came out the other side, and it just seemed natural by that point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love it. Um, I want to talk a little bit how you got started running a professional recording studio, and what were some of the hurdles that you came across when sort of setting it up? Um, can you sort of think of any experiences that helped you, you know, get your direction rolling?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was I had kind of like two parallel career paths, and it was live and studio. So
Yes.
for years, I was touring as a front of house engineer and as a musician and all manner of other things.
Yeah.
At the same time, I was working in studios. So I would either hire studios when I needed to record a band, and I'd mix at home. Or there was one studio I kind of lived at for quite a while, not like full-time living, but I'd arrive on a Thursday and I'd eventually leave by Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
But that eventually shut down, and I needed a space to work out of, so I moved into where I am now.
Okay.
Um, and yeah, I mean, like hurdles, loads, and every
Mm.
day, like they don't really stop. They lessen. you
Yeah.
you hit less things that you can't do eventually, but it's for the setup I've got, it caters for a lot of things, and that is the most expensive thing you can try and do. It's ridiculous. It's if you try and specialize as a studio, like I record vocals, I program this, or I mix, or I master, they're all financially relatively feasible, but
Mm.
trying to do everything, it's an expensive game. So the biggest hurdle is the finances.
Right.
It was a long time before I could do a job and not spend money on the job, if that makes sense. Like for a
Right.
long time, I'd have to invest every session to make sure I could do the session.
Right.
That went on for years,
Okay.
years and years, and
Okay.
that eventually leveled off.
I feel like recording studios are a little bit like big houses. Like there is always something to maintain. There's always a roof tile to put back, always a patch cable to maybe resolder, or maybe the interface has got like, a temperamental glitch on it or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Like it's yeah, that's really well put. It's like the never-ending house build. There
Right.
isn't an end.
Hmm.
You have to learn to settle eventually, because it's you can't keep throwing money at these things. But yeah, there's always something. There's always something to repair. I don't want to think about my repair list at the moment. It is kind of huge.
Wow.
But you make do, and you remember that thing doesn't like to be on that setting, so don't put it on that setting. You use the ones around it. Turn it up too much or turn it down a little bit.
Yes, yeah, and that is analog equipment really in a
Yeah.
nutshell, isn't it? There'll be studios out there with, the SSL desk that we all want, but
Mm.
whatever you do, don't go into channel 14
That's it.
because
Yeah.
you just don't.
That one sucks. Don't use that one. Just move around it. I've been in like I do still hire other studios, and there's a lovely studio near me that's got amazing old gear in it, but everything is wrong with it, and it's fun and it's nice to use all this nice old gear, but it's like just stepping on eggshells. Everything you do, like faders have to park in a certain place, some EQs you don't turn on, or you've got to flick a switch enough times just to hope that it settles down.
Right.
It's chaos. It's fun, but it's sometimes you just want to plug a mic in and just let it work. You kind of
Right.
sometimes I'd rather things worked than sounded nice.
Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. There will be a beauty for that somewhere though. You will find a band and you'll be like, "Oh my God, this vocalist needs channel 14."
Oh, of
I
course,
found
man.
it. We
Yeah.
need to go into that really dirty input, I promise. Okay, so can you take us back to, you know, tell us about your first maybe recording session. What's the first project? You don't have to reveal the band name, but maybe what is the first one when you're like, I'm paying money? Oh, sorry, they're paying money and I got to get this done.
Oh, that's quite a question, man. It's going back a long time.
Okay. Well, in that case, can you sort of maybe tell us about an experience or a story, or like even maybe just what a feeling it was like to get your first EP recorded when a band came to you and they said, we want to make an EP or we want to do a single, and you're like, I kind of know what I'm doing, but I kind of don't, and you got the job done. Can you think about what that was like?
Yeah, I can. I don't think that's a feeling that ever goes though. Not
Right.
to answer that in the broadest way possible. It's going to be hard for me to find a very particular thing. But what you
Hmm.
just said there of, I need to get this done, and I'm not sure if I really know what's going on. We all feel like that all the time. I don't think anyone ever gets over that.
Right.
It's not a black and white line of work. There's no. It's music. So there's
Yeah.
never a this is how you do this and this is how you do that. There's things that work in some situations and things that don't. There's no definitive answers, so it does feel like a career of winging it every day.
That is so interesting because I guess obviously I've never, I'm a rookie in all of this mix and recording world, but I've done a lot of gigging. And in fact, I was thinking about this earlier. Me and you have done one gig together.
Yes,
Do you
we
remember
have.
that?
Yeah,
The
yeah, I
one
do.
and only. All the years I've known you, we've done one gig, and it was strange, but we definitely did it. But maybe that's a good example that, you know, yes, you get confident gigging, but you don't know how many people are going to be in the audience. You don't know if a
Mhm.
fight's going to break out. You don't know if you're going to get paid at the end. You don't know if you're going to have
Yeah,
a valve in your amp
yeah, yeah.
go midway through. So I guess
Mhm.
there is that sort of still thing of unknown of like, I hope I get through this.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I
And you're
didn't
not gonna.
even.
So you're not going to play the perfect gig either. That's not
Right.
that's not what music is. Music isn't a perfect anything. Again, it's
Mm,
not black or white. You will play, and there is a spectrum of good to bad that you will play. But you're not mechanical. You're not a robot. You're a human being. There will
hmm.
be inflections and imperfections, and it's the same with all of it. Like it's all educated guesses all the way
Yes.
through.
Did you go to school for recording, Faz, or did someone teach you, or did you teach yourself?
A bit of all of the above. So I
Right.
did go to college.
Okay.
I did college for a couple of years. It wasn't great. It's not it's not the college's fault. It's just I hope it's improved now, but at the time, the syllabus for music production and recording, it was just bad. It was all out of date, and it wasn't relevant. And to be honest, it's a hard thing to teach. So I don't really blame any school for not doing it because it's not doing it well. Sorry,
Right.
because you've just got to do it. You've got to jump in and just really see what happens. It's an odd line of work.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
But I didn't really have mentors or anything like that. Not directly in this. I did have for songwriting
Hmm.
and playing,
Yeah.
um, and much later on in my career, I had a mentor for live sound after I'd already been doing it for 10 years.
Right.
Never in this line of work. This has always been what I've learned along the way.
Yeah.
Mm.
Okay. So I guess that's really, really interesting. And I'm thinking, because you're so old, as we've talked about. um, there's no YouTube. You haven't got any uh people on YouTube saying, well, this is how you get the vocals to sound like this. So what did you do? How did you, I mean, I guess, was it just trial and error until you just found the right sound? And how, I guess, from you sort of figuring that out, do you think you could put a time frame on it when you were like, ah, I got it now, or I feel like I've made a little jump over the hurdle here?
Um, it, it's trial and error. It really is. It's just doing it every day. It's like learning an instrument. Like, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
you can be taught an amount, but it's repetition and
Right.
just doing it all the time. So again, I was touring at the same time, so that really helped because that meant I was in a different capacity. I was, every day. I was mixing bands on a console and using the gear every day.
Right.
I messed up a lot of live shows before I stopped messing those up, and
Really?
that. Oh yeah, anyone who goes into live sound definitely does. I think it's the same with any line of work.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely did because it's an intense atmosphere. But I think that's a good thing. It makes you work quickly,
Yes, it
so
does.
you
Yeah.
only make the mistake a few times at a gig before people start shouting at you. You will correct it.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
So
Yep.
there
Yep.
was a lot of that, and it's just doing it. Like I'm doing this every day, like 12 hours a day. Even on my days off, I'm still researching and learning and trying to find new ways of doing things, whether it's songwriting or production or mixing or
Mm.
it's it's like it's a full-time occupation. You don't get a choice with this stuff. It's just what you think about.
It really, really is. I always give the analogy when I teach guitar, um, and that is, you know, I give the analogy, it's a little bit like when you go for driving lessons. When you learn to drive, you go with an instructor and they tell you how to parallel park and they tell you how to reverse around a corner and which you never do, but they tell you all these different things, how to pass the exam,
Mm,
right? But you don't really know how to drive until you're on the motorway going somewhere ridiculous for a 3 hour driving, the driver's 3 hours, and you're trying to figure out,
mm,
how do I change lanes, and how, you're on your own for the first time,
mm,
and you got to drive on a motorway, or you got to do some bigger type stuff. That's when
mm.
you learn how to drive,
Yeah,
you know and
yeah.
it's the same with guitar. I always tell people when they come to me for guitar lessons, I can teach you an A chord, I can teach you a power chord, I can teach you a pentatonic scale, I can teach you all of that, and I can get you further than that, obviously, as well. But you will really start playing when you go and join a band, or when you go and teach yourself a song using the
Mm,
stuff I've taught you, that kind
yeah,
of stuff. Um, so yeah, I think putting what you're learning into practice, right? That's
yeah.
how you get better.
That's a great analogy, and I think something to take away from it would be, as you said, like you can learn all the quote unquote right things to do as a guitarist. Like you can learn every scale and every chord, but you have to find your own application of it. It's your taste that will
Right.
that's. I think that's the part with all of this that's the thing that you can't teach when it comes to the actual creative part of all this. You can't teach taste. So you can
Right.
have all the tools in the world, but that's the thing that you have to develop on your own, and that will only take time.
Yeah. Yeah. No, for sure. Yes. Okay. Well, let's um let's talk a little bit about your mixing board, your console that you got in front of you there, if that's okay.
That's fine. Yeah.
Because I remember seeing that actually, um, when I did some recording with you, and if I
Mm.
remember rightly, it's a Yamaha, isn't it? Is that a
Yeah,
Yamaha board?
it's not a particularly sexy console. It's a very functional console.
So
It's
tell us a little bit about it and why you chose that.
it was recommended when I was looking at different options. It was recommended to me. It's not a new console. These are not very popular. They were only really popular in like TV studios, broadcast studios.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah, that's for some whatever reason they took off there, but they were a multi-function board, so it's a digital console, and it was for studio use and primarily aimed at TV studio use and for touring use. It can work as a live console as well,
Right.
which actually kind of makes it the perfect music production board, because I can, using this, I can, you know, run a whole recording studio and have a PA set up in the other room, have that EQ'd for singers to have speakers as monitoring, and like do full live sessions and all
Mm-hmm.
that kind of thing. So
Mm-hmm.
it's just really flexible board. But yeah, it's a digital console. It's 96 channels. It works as a control surface, so it syncs with Pro Tools, and you know, you can move faders, and Pro Tools reflects that.
Mm-hmm.
As a transport section, monitor section. It's a lot of things built into one box, and it's quite, for what it does, it's quite small. Like,
Yeah.
it's not even an arm's width wide for what it does, which is really cool. And it's just a very functional board. It's, you know, it'd be impossible for me to list off everything it does and every reason that I have it, but it just kind of works. It's very, again, it's very functional. It's got multiple switchable inputs, so you know, even though I have 32 inputs hardwired, I can switch in an extra 24, and there's no
Wow.
cabling to worry about. It's just very practical, and because it's digital, it doesn't really have a sound, which allows me to put other units in front of it, and that's kind of creating the console, if you will.
Yeah.
So it's like
Yeah.
the control aspect is perfect, but then I can give it an imperfect front end and use like old style equipment with it.
That's an interesting an approach, but also a yeah, really clever approach, rather than like committing to something like, oh, I've got to have a Neve console for it, but or I've got to have an SSL or something like that. You got the money for this, right? You can.
Yeah, sure. On
If
what
you could,
planet?
if you could have one of those consoles, I mean, do you lust for anything like that, or?
No, I'm jaded by this point. I look at that and I see repair bill. That's all I see. I'd like
Right.
to have certain things,
Okay.
basically. Just from a practical point of view, there's no benefit to me having 96 channels of Neve console or whatever it is.
Right.
It's big, it's bulky, it gets hot, it uses a lot of electricity. There's so many reasons I wouldn't use that, to be honest.
Right.
I do like the gear. I have Neve preamps and modules, and
Hmm.
you know, I've got old style front end, but I don't need 32 channels of it. It's unnecessary for me,
Right.
even with what I'm doing. But maybe like you know, 10 or 12 channels. They do a little mixes. That would
Yeah.
be nice, you know, just doing drums and stuff like that. But it's not a need. It would be a want. You know,
Right.
I
Yeah.
don't need that to work. It would be nice.
We'd put that in Studio B, right?
Yeah, that's it.
We'll
Yeah,
put. Oh, you want the Neve
yeah.
console? I don't really go into Studio B that often. We can go in there if you want, you know.
I think if you asked me a few years ago, the answer would have been different.
Oh,
But
interesting.
at this point, I need things that sound great but
Hmm.
reliable, recallable, and something that's not a distraction. I find nice gear is good to have, but a lot of nice gear is distracting.
Hmm.
For what I do anyway. If what I was doing was I saw a new band every day and we were just recording and spitting tracks out, that would be different.
Right.
But a lot of what I do is producing and arranging and all that kind of stuff, and I don't want to have to recall a mixing console when I flip between songs. I could be working on 5 to 10 songs in a day. It's not, from a mixing point of view, it's not practical, and again, recording point of view, for me, unnecessary. But it would, if anything, it would be a Neve.
Okay.
I
Interesting.
do
All
love
right.
Neve.
I'm with you. Okay. Just for the record, we do want a
Mm.
Neve. Okay.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, yeah.
Um, when you hear mixes, when you hear, you know, I'm going to use the word amateur mixes. Um, what do you feel is lacking when you hear people that are starting to record, you know, themselves, mix
Mhm.
themselves? What do you think is a lacking element where you're like, okay, yeah, but this is kind of still what's keeping you from getting to the next level?
Yeah, okay, I see that. Well, normally, I don't hear a lot of amateur mixes, but I do get rough mixes from clients when I'm going to do a mix. So that would kind of be my benchmark.
Sure.
And there are common traits.
Okay.
It's kind of uncanny, really. It tends to be the same things for the most part. And generally, the bass end it's too much or positioned badly.
Mm,
And what I mean by position badly is, you know, kick drums and basses they're too low down or they're too high up, like in the frequency range.
right.
Not like maybe volume, but normally it's where how the speakers project is too subsonic or too high up.
Okay.
Um, the other one tends to be it's funny because I always find that the general consensus of an amateur mix is it's really bright and brash. I always find it's the opposite. There's hardly ever any top end in there. I think people are very conservative about it, and I think I see it in musicians as well, not just people mixing, but as a bass player, I'm going to be sensitive to this. I find a lot of bass players who instinctively roll their tone down, and whilst they think they're looking for a warmer sound, I think you'll relate with this. They're hiding their mistakes by making it dark.
Right.
And I think it's the same thing with amateur mixes. I think they don't know how to deal with the top end, so it's easier just to make it dark rather than actually allow it to breathe and be as bright as it needs to be.
Yeah.
So that tends to be one. And then generally too dynamic. Certain things are too dynamic. Vocals typically are too dynamic. So what people tend to do is, because they don't know how to control the dynamics of a vocal properly, they tend to undermix it. They put it too far back in the mix, and you just get the occasional word that's kind of popping out.
Right.
I'd say they're the most common things, but there's so many things.
Of course.
I'm not saying, you know, but I don't want it to sound like I'm going, oh, there's so many bad mixes. There's not. There's so many great mixes coming out of home studios. It's kind of amazing. But when something sounds off, it's normally one of those things. And then it comes down to taste past there, and that's, you know, you can't say whether someone's got good or bad taste, because that's
it's subjective, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But that tends to be the thing. It's out of my taste, basically.
Right. When you're mixing something now, do you, I guess, do you have, I mean, I feel like I probably know the answer, but I'm interested. Do you have go-to things that you do? So do you probably, even if you got a punk rock band here that came and recorded, and then you got a punk rock band here that are coming in 3 weeks' time, you know, they're kind of the same genre. Do you already know what you're going to do to the bass? Like, do you sort of have these go-to things, or do you try and start from scratch every single time? I'm asking, like, do you have presets? Do you have like a go-to template that you kind of know, yeah, this is gonna, you know, this is gonna fit the bill?
Yeah, I know you're going with that. Half and half. I don't I don't record a band and then turn on my settings and there's a mix. That's certainly not a thing. I do have a template. It's mostly for routing, because for me, it's not just I do a mix, the mix is done, goodbye, thank you very much. I have to do like alternative versions, so there'll be like a main mix, mastered mix, stems, TV mix, instrumentals. So I have a template that allows me to do that really quickly, because that can be super time consuming.
Yes.
Which is obviously the boring end of the scale. On the slightly more exciting end of the scale, not that exciting, but I have things ready in case I need them. So I generally start with the same set of vocal effects. I know what they sound like, and I will bend them to what I need them to do.
You tweak them, right? Yeah.
Yeah. It's like a starting point that works for me, and it's not to say I'm going to use them all. I'll have loads. There'll be at least like 10 vocal effects returns.
Right.
I may only use one, or maybe I need all 10 because it's like a big ambient record, but they're there if I need them, so I can work quickly, because there's no one's paying me to think and try and set things up in the middle of a session or whatever. That's not cool. It's, I'm here to create results.
Right.
So things like that, I'll have things ready. It's probably the best way I can put it, and things in a certain place. That's really important for me, just to know that there are going to be drums here, there's going to be vocals there. I can't be looking for it. I just need to act on instinct.
Right.
Which I think is, for anyone mixing, that's really important, to know where everything is, because the more time you spend looking, the less time you're creating.
Right.
So,
exactly. So you'll probably have your parallel buses and all that kind of stuff sort of ready to go, and to start getting that sound. I think that's always the fun bit of being in your studio. I know I did this when I came and recorded with you, and I would sort of be like, hey, can we try and add this on, and it was almost instantly, yeah, there you go. And that inspires the next decision, doesn't it, when you can hear something straight away?
You nailed it right in the head. It's keeping momentum, and it's keeping it inspirational. So I'll have varying templates for different things. So I have writing session templates for that exact reason. I want to try this guitar sound. Great, click, try that one.
Right, exactly.
It's important. Or I'll have like templates with transitional effects. So I'll have like a sample pad, which is hiding in this drawer down here.
Yes.
And I have like reverse cymbals and booms and things like that, just in case someone goes, "Oh, can we do this kind of sound?" What, you mean this?
Yeah, I need a
Yeah.
easy. I've got 17 of them ready to go. Let's go. Why didn't you say? I'll pull up the template especially for that.
That's about the only one I haven't got on.
Until now, yeah.
Yeah. I've got some pan pipes. That'll probably have to do.
That'll do for now. Yeah, that's the more analog version. Yeah. It's a warmer sound, anyways. Pan pipes. Okay, well, all right. That's very interesting. Okay, this leads me on to another question then. Is there a point, and I'm asking all these questions kind of feeling like I know the answers, but is there a point where a mix is finished?
No. It's abandoned.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
It's again, as we said before, there's no right or wrong. There's no definitive thing with anything, any form of art. Not to mixing's, music is art, mixing is a service, but
yeah,
there is no definitive thing. I mean, for me, it's when I can't listen to the song anymore, and that's simply because I'm making small moves. That's for me, that's when a mix is done, because I'm doing small things that are so small I'm only ever going to notice, and I'm either not making improvements or I'm starting to create detrimental effects. So at that point it's done, but it really is abandoned. It's just you walk away and go, that's as good as this is going to be in this moment right now. And
do you, when you're in that case, when you feel like you're there, what's your ultimate mix test? Do you know your monitors so well now that you probably don't need to try it on other stuff? Or are you doing the car test? Are you doing an iPhone test? Are you doing a Bluetooth speaker test?
I do check on other things, but not really before I send it off.
Right. So but that's good, because you feel like I know this is at the level that the last one was at, and this is, you can tell it's in the right place.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, my monitoring system is really good. It is really good, and I'm always improving it. I just retuned it a couple of weeks ago, and it was another improvement. So, I have, at the moment, I've got 2 sets of monitors. I have a third set over there, which I've not plugged in because I can't fit them in at the moment, but I do love them.
What monitors are you running at the moment?
So my mains are PMCs.
Okay.
Which they're actually near Bedford. They're just up the road from where you were from and where I am.
There you go.
Over in sunny Luton.
Interesting.
They're my mains. They're I would say they're a mastering grade speaker. Not like 40 grand's worth of mastering grade speaker, but they are up there. I would say they suit that purpose. I use those with a subwoofer.
Okay.
And above them at the moment, it's a pair of Auratones, which they're basically like the car speaker test. They're a single speaker in a small enclosure, no ports or anything like that. So they're just all mid-range, horrible, vile sounding thing, but great just to check certain elements. But I don't listen to it very long. I'll flick over if I'm worried about a snare drum or a vocal. I'll just flick for like not even 5 seconds and then flick back to my mains.
Okay.
But like in terms of like checking other things, this is gonna sound terrible, but I listen to more music on my Apple headphones than anything else. So
does the whole world.
Yeah, man.
Right?
Everyone does.
Yeah. It really, really does happen. It's so funny because I don't know if this was just the story I told myself. I think I've mentioned this in another interview as well, but when we were doing, this EP that I released a couple of months ago, it was great getting the really high quality masters back, and this sounds so good, and hearing that level of detail, and I was really, really happy with it. Still really, really happy with it. But weirdly enough, and again, maybe I've tricked myself, but I don't think I really it was when I heard it coming out on Spotify to my headphones, where I was like, that sounds like everything else I listen to.
Huh.
It was like a weird thing, and maybe Spotify, maybe it doesn't, do its magic on a track and sort of spits it out in consumerism style quality, but it was that moment. It was like, okay, this sounds like the music I know. It was really, really
Interesting.
interesting. Yeah.
I used to get something similar with CDs.
Mm.
Once, if it was playing off my speakers in the studio, I'd hate it. I'd play it off a CD and I'd be like, yeah, cool. I guess it's like a detachment thing. You can't poke at it; it's gone forever. Like you can't touch it.
Yeah.
I think that accounts for a lot. If that makes any
Definitely does. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, it
yeah.
definitely does.
When
Yeah.
you're sitting there and you've got faders or a mouse or whatever you use to mix, you can always change something, and it's always going to bug you that that tiniest thing is off. But once it's just playing, and
Hmm.
you have no choice in the matter, you tend to be more accepting of it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
we,
Yeah. You
we,
sort of let go and you've committed to it, and it is what it is.
100%, man, and that's why, like, even though I do master, I will hire mastering engineers because it gets it out of my hands.
Yeah.
And it's that same thing. They've done something. I don't know what they've done, but all I know is it's done,
Yeah.
and I can't touch it, and I can't mess with it, and you accept it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm,
Really, really good point.
mm,
Um, so for anyone that's mixing at home, recording at home, but wants to get into this world, I really feel like I mean, I feel like everyone I speak to is a success story, but you know, seeing where you are now, Faz, in your studio and how many bands you've recorded over the years and sort of how hard you've worked to get to this point and whatnot, do you have any advice for for up and coming recording studio guys? I'm trying to have this approach of no gatekeeping. Let's
mm.
share the experiences and the advice for everyone. And what would you tell someone?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say be open to learning every day. That's probably a cliche, but I can't overstate that enough. Like I'm, I've been doing this a long time, and I'm really making an effort to self-educate even more at the moment. Every day,
Right.
I'm setting time aside to learn. Like always, be willing to see someone else's point of view, even if you disagree with it. Just try and understand what it is.
Hmm.
If you're working a project for a musician and they don't like what you did, find out why they don't like it.
Hmm.
They're probably not being a dick. There's probably a very good reason. So like,
Right.
try and understand why they don't like it. And the thing, I mean, look, it's going to be a lot of work if you're going to do this line of work. It you are going to give most of your life over to this, so you've got to be prepared to do that. And if you're not, it's not for you. But
Hmm.
that is a hard truth. I know it's a depressing truth, depending on who you are and how you see things. But
Hmm.
if you'd rather be out socializing most nights of the week, it's not for you, because it's just
Right.
you're probably, in a nice way possible, not built to do this in the long haul. Maybe part time.
Right.
And I think, out of everything else, just be the best human being you can be. that
Mm.
that always pays dividends. Like,
Yeah.
just put good energy out into the world, do your best work, just try, just be a good human. I know that
Just be
sounds
a nice
mad.
person. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I've met so many grumpy engineers and, jaded
Mm.
musicians, and they just put bad energy out, and no one wants to be around them.
Hmm.
And and quite frankly, so much of this industry, as I'm sure you've found out, it's not necessarily down to someone's skill set as much as it is who they are as a person.
The
There's
hang.
Yeah, there's plenty of, okay musicians that are in great bands because they're good to be around, and there's plenty
Yes.
of amazing guitarists who haven't left their bedroom because they think they're the best and they think they're owed something. And
Hmm.
it's the same with, anything in life, but definitely in music, because you're spending a lot of time with people, whether it's in the room or, just remotely through these things and whatever
Yeah.
it may be.
So you may have just answered this last question that I have for you then, but why do you keep, what keeps you being a recording engineer? What keeps you being a mixing engineer? And, what's going to, keep you accepting work and taking on new projects?
I love what I do, man. Like,
Yeah.
I wouldn't be doing anything else, well, at least, outside of this industry anyway.
Hmm.
It's just you just do it.
Well,
I-
let me ask you this then. Because you've probably worn a few hats in your studio time. I'm sure you've been the producer. I'm sure you've been just an engineer. I'm sure you've been
Mm.
the mixing guy. But you got to pick one. You got to pick one of those roles to do. What would you choose?
Producing,
Really,
by a long shot. Yeah.
that's so
Produ-
interesting. And even like hands off producing, like we're going to make this album and I'm going to hire the mixing engineer, I'm going to hire this person, would you, in the traditional sense, choose to be a producer?
I've never done it. I've always done everything, or
Right.
or a singular role outside of production. That's an interesting one. I think at this point I'd be comfortable doing that. It would
Right.
certainly give me a break. I mean, at this point I have assistants for various things, so
Yeah.
I'm getting used to delegating tasks. So
Right.
I think so. I think that tends to be my strongest suit. Although what I do day to day is everything.
Right.
I'm a producer that engineers
Hmm.
and does everything in between.
Yeah.
That I'd say that is my strength. It's conducting bands, helping with arrangements, understanding how the gear works and how to get to a certain point. But there's probably better engineers. Well, there's definitely going to be better engineers than me out there. So why, if the opportunity was there to hire someone who can do something better, yeah, you do it. Make it
Yeah.
sound like this. No, better than that. Thank you.
Yeah.
That sounds great.
So if people want to get in touch with you, Faz, if how do they do that? How do they get how do they how do they get Faz to mix one of their songs if you're taking on work at the moment? And
Sure. I mean, social media wise, I'm mostly on Instagram. I'm
Mhm.
pretty bad at social media, but I'm trying. I'm really trying at the moment.
Okay.
On Instagram, you can find me as Faz Makes Music,
Hmm.
and that's the same for Facebook. If anyone
Right.
still using Facebook, I'm sure people still use Facebook.
Yeah, I think it's still a
Um,
thing. It's about to
yes.
join MySpace, but I think it's still a thing. Yeah.
I mean, otherwise, on a more professional level, and I generally do prefer this, but it's old school. Email,
Yep.
which is the studio, info@damageaudio.co.uk, because I never bought a .com and I've regretted it my entire career.
Hey, yeah. Just don't buy a Canadian one. Don't buy a .ca. We don't want .ca. I haven't bought a Canadian one yet, but
No.
it's out there. It's definitely out there.
Honestly, not having a .com is only just causing me issues, and
Really?
yeah, and I'm not really. I don't know the internet well enough. That sounds really weird, but I don't understand the internet well enough to change over to a .com and not have my life disappear, because I've had my email address for so long. I don't know how you do all of that. So here I am,
Interesting. Yeah, yeah,
flying
yeah, yeah,
flying
yeah.
the British flag.
Yeah. Here is Faz, everyone. He makes amazing sounding records and mixes. He can make it sound like anything, but if we need to change a domain name, we're gonna hire a guy. Well, Faz, look, it's been so awesome catching up with you, mainly because it's been such a long time since we've really caught up and whatnot. But I feel like we're still going to be on a session again together at some point. I think we've got to get back into the studio. It's been great to hear about your experiences, your stories, learn about some of your equipment that you got going on there, and try and inspire me and other people that are listening to this that just find such a thrill in audio production, audio mixing, recording instruments. Yeah, it's just been such a great time catching up with you. So thank you so much for your time, and let's speak again really soon.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. It's been great. It's been the best interview of my life.
Today, anyways.
Today. I was
Thank
not asked to say that.
Thank you, Faz. We'll speak again soon, buddy.